Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Greater St. Louis Business Aviation Association monthly get-together by Zoom. And today we're very, very proud to have some fascinating men from the great company of Gulfstream to talk about their new G700. But before we get to that program in itself and introductions, we're going to hand it over to Tim Long, our association president. So Tim, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the September webinar. Just a couple of quick announcements, and I'll pass it back to Jeremy. Unfortunately, we did have to cancel our 8th annual aviation trivia night. That was actually scheduled for tomorrow. We expect to be back next year better than ever. And the other announcement I have is the golf tournament is still on for Wednesday, September 23rd at the Old Hickory Golf Course in St. Peters, Missouri. So we're still looking for golfers, sponsors, silent auction items. The event will go on. We know we'll have fewer golfers, so the social distancing will be in place, and the golf course is taking every precaution along those lines, but we'd love to see you there. So please come on out and play golf with us. And back to Jeremy.
Thank you, Tim, very much indeed. Well, without much further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Sherman Griffith. Sherman is our regional sales vice president for Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation. He's actually the go-to guy if you want to come out and buy this new G700 or any of the other new airplanes. He loves talking Gulfstreams. He's based down in Grapevine, Texas, and he is going to get this kicked off. So over to you, Sherman. Thank you very much.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And thanks to Tim and Jeremy and Greater St. Louis Business Aviation Association for allowing Gulfstream to host this meeting. The topic for today, as Jeremy mentioned, will be our G700. We're extremely proud of this new aircraft in development. It'll become our flagship of our fleet, joining our G280, G500, G600, and G650 and G650ER product offerings. Steve Cass is with us today. He'll do the honors giving the presentation. We're very fortunate to have Steve with us. He's a member of our senior leadership team in Savannah. Steve's title is Vice President of Sales Development and Support. He's responsible for supporting worldwide new aircraft sales organization, including operation of our company's 6 sales and design centers worldwide. Steve joined Gulfstream in 1992 with our preliminary design group and worked on the G5 program and special missions. Prior to Gulfstream, he also worked at Rockwell International and North American Aircraft. Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Sherman, and Jeremy and Tim and everyone else. Pleasure to be here today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see that okay.
Perfectly.
And what I'd like to do before we get started is just let you know that, please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can either do this verbally or you could do this via the chat function. Either way works for me. We can kind of keep this low key and as informative as we can be for you. So let's go ahead and get started on the presentation. So really on the G700, the goal really here was to take the best aspects of the G650ER, the longest range at the fastest speeds, combine that with some of the most safest, most advanced technologies that we developed for the G500 and 600, and combine that into a new airplane that has an even larger cabin, and really try to make it the most comfortable cabin in business aviation. And I think we've succeeded in that. And today what I'll do is I'll walk you through a little bit about the different aspects of the aircraft itself, and then we'll kind of get into where we stand with the development program. So just to do a quick walk around of the airplane itself, this is an addition to the Gulfstream fleet. So this doesn't replace the 650 or 650ER. This is an addition to that. We'll start first talking about the cabin. So the cabin cross-section actually is the same cabin cross-section as the G650ER. So it's already the widest and the tallest cabin, about 8 feet 2 inches wide and about 6 feet 3 inches tall. But it's about 10 feet longer than the 650. And that allows us to have a 4 living area cabin with a crew compartment, or we even have some configurations with the 5 living area cabin. In addition, it also allows us to have more windows. And so we actually have 20 of the G650 size windows on the G700. And for those of you that may not know, those 650 windows were all new, and actually they're about 16% larger than the windows that we had on the G4, G5, 450, 550. So about 450 square inches per window. So it's just a lot of natural light in the airplane.
Steve, I have a question regarding this particular slide, if I may ask the question, and that is, I see it looks like an escape hatch in the entryway in the center of the crown skin and fuselage skin. Is that just for flight test, or will there be an escape hatch?
No. So our friends at the FAA said that the distance from the flight deck to the emergency exits are too far, and so that's a requirement to have an emergency escape hatch for the flight crew up front. So so that is part of the standard configuration. I think the Global 7500 has a similar hatch over in the vestibule. So that's courtesy of the authorities. So
thank you.
You're welcome. From the performance standpoint, really it's the combination of the advanced high-speed wing and the new generation Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 engines. So those engines are brand new. They're in the test and certification program right now. The engines themselves are expected to be certified early next year. And then from the wing itself, it starts off with the 650 wing, but we've done some changes to it, especially to the outboard part, where a new advanced high-speed winglet has allowed us to improve the aerodynamic efficiency. And then we combined it with some of the new technologies. So we have the Symmetry flight deck that we first developed for the G500 and 600. One of the hallmarks of that Symmetry flight deck is going to the active control side sticks. That's a first for our industry. We'll have very well equipped. You'll have dual HUDs. You'll have synthetic vision on the HUD. All that is standard. It will be a common pilot type rating with the G500 and 600. And we also have a new data concentration network, and I'll explain what that is later on in the presentation. For those that like numbers, oh yes, yep.
We've got a question, but we may want to hold it to the end. Rick Berkmeyer is asking, what is the status of the order book on this aircraft?
Well, we're selling into 2025, so that's probably what I can. The first aircraft will deliver in 2022. And if you talk to Sherman now, you would probably most likely pitch you a 2025 position. So,
and 75 million thereabouts
in 2022, and it escalates in further years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For those that like numbers, here are the basic specifications for the aircraft. So it's about 110 feet long, just under that. Wingspan about 103 feet, so it's about a little 3 feet wider than the straight 650ER. Tail height 25.5, so a little bit shorter than the 650. So you should be able to get into existing hangars. Ramp weight's 108. Max fuel weight's about 49,400 pounds. That's about 1,200 pounds more than the 650ER. And a nice payload with full fuel. You can carry about 2,200 pounds of payload with a full fuel load. So you're not going to have to offload much fuel on these long-range flights. All right, switching now, we're going to talk first about the cabin, and to kind of give you a quick overview, I'm going to show a quick video of the interior of our G700.
I'd like to welcome you to the G700. My name is Timothy O'Hara. I'm the Director of Innovation Design for Gulfstream. We wanted to incorporate what luxury really was. The curves, function, all was really designed to go together. So this is the G700 seat. In my 20 years of doing this, we've never spent as much time integrating the foam and design than we have in this seat. We allowed you to be able to reshape some parts of the back panel to give you a wing or a slim design. We've also integrated this arm, fold-all waterfall that actually nests beautifully into the ledge. It's much more ergonomic than ever before. You have your soft glide. You have a footrest control. The seat also has a pan extender, so if you want to have a little bit deeper of a seat, you can do that. And then the seat recline. Ledge control is something that makes it very easy for the user to be able to have quick functions. So if you want to put windows up or down, turn your table light on, your reading light, it's a one-touch operation. We also have a new sliding lid for the aircraft, which houses cup holders, wireless power, which allows you to put your phone down without plugging in and charge your phone. But you also have the USBs, and your large open storage allows you to have a lot of flexibility. You also get a USB and an outlet. Paddle holders, and it still allows you to have a full-size table as well. This is the brand new 6-place dining. We have a single pedestal table which can raise up. A leaf comes out of the table. Within 20 seconds, you're set up to have a full 6-place dining. In the table, if you lay your phone down here, the phone will be able to charge. The new G700 galley. It's 122 inches of linear space. And there's a lot of unique features. We have some uppers that have been redesigned that slide up and out of the way. A pop-up storage. The galley fridge has been integrated to have more of a residential feel. And here to make it a little bit more of a social atmosphere. There's a lot of flexibility in the galley. The combinations are truly endless in the G700.
So it's really an all-new design of the interior, and really trying to provide the most comfort, the most flexibility. What you're looking at here is a shot of the aft stateroom, where you can have a fixed bed if you like. There's several different sizes of the beds and the way it articulates or offers storage. It's a brand new seat design for the G700, new PSUs, an all-new lighting system. We actually have both a high definition and an ultra high definition lighting system, which allows us to control the lighting, all the way down to about 0.3% of the brightness, all the way up to 100%, and in about 65,000 steps. So it's very, very smooth. You can tailor this to time with the circadian rhythm. So you do light shaping, for instance, around the windows. So it's a big advancement in the lighting. Of course, one of the great selling features for the aircraft are the largest windows. Again, there's 20 of those windows in the aircraft. All the windows are totally usable. But really, you start thinking about the overall cabin environment for the aircraft. In addition to that natural light, a lot of focus has been put on the comfort and the healthiness of the cabin. And one of those is with the cabin altitude. So we actually had the lowest cabin altitude in the industry. At your initial cruise altitude, you're going to have a cabin altitude of about 3,200 feet. And then at 45,000 feet, you'll be about 4,000 feet. And even at 51,000 feet, your cabin altitude is never going to exceed more than 4,800 feet. So you're a good 4,000 feet lower than the airlines and many of the other business jets that are out there. And that's important because it actually allows you, that lower cabin altitude makes it easier for your body to get the oxygen to its bloodstream. So, when you're at a higher elevation, you may have noticed if you've been up in the mountains, that's a little bit harder to breathe. That's because your body's trying to get that oxygen to its bloodstream. So the way your body compensates for that is your heart rate increases, your breath frequency increases, and there's a level of fatigue that's associated with that. So if you can keep that cabin altitude lower, that dramatically improves your comfort and reduces fatigue. 100% fresh air. This is getting a lot of conversation over the past 6 months. This has been a hallmark of Gulfstream aircrafts from the beginning, but we do not recirculate any of our air. The entire air is we provide about 800 cubic feet of fresh air per minute. So really, when you look at these airplanes, about every 2 to 3 minutes, the entire cabin air is totally replenished. And it really makes for a healthier cabin environment. And then the quietest cabin sound levels. Gulfstream, if you don't know, we're actually part of the General Dynamics portfolio. And of course, GD, in addition to building airplanes, they build tanks, they do combat communications, but they also build submarines. And we brought in some of the acoustic engineers from the Electric Boat Submarine Division to Gulfstream back in 2003, and they stood up a state-of-the-art acoustic group in one of the most advanced acoustic test facilities, and we've been able to drive these cabin sound levels down to dramatically low levels. If you look at the G650 fleet, for instance, you know, of the 430 some odd airplanes that we have built, the average cabin speech interference level of that aircraft is about 47.5 dB. And that's at Mach 8.5. And that's about, you know, 4 to 5 decibels quieter than what you'll see out of most other manufacturers. So tremendous improvement in getting those sound levels down. And the target for the G700 actually is to have cabin sound levels that are actually lower, quieter than the 650 fleet. So I'll talk about some of the flexibility that we have in the cabin itself. So here's a shot of the configuration, very similar to what you saw on the in the movie. You'll have a forward lavatory, some storage areas, a very large galley. It's over 10 feet long. On one side, you actually have 2 exposed windows in that galley. Opposite that, there's also a galley stack area where you'll have your microwave, your convection oven. You'll have a place for, you know, coffee, tea, espresso, whatever you decide to choose. Opposite the galley, we'll have a crew compartment area. This can be a single seat with an ottoman, as you can see here. It could be 2 opposing seats. It could be a 2-place divan, as you saw in the video. It could even be a bunk bed. So lots of flexibility in how we configure that. We can close that off with a curtain, with a hard partition, or you can leave it open, as you saw in the video.
Steve, I've got a question for you regarding the crew rest area, because you see with so many long-range, large cabin airplanes that offer the crew rest area, which is a large part of compliance for long-distance travel. But I see that a large chunk of that segment of airplanes, the owners elect not to have a crew rest area. Are you seeing, what kind of split are you seeing? Are you seeing 60-40, 50-50, 90-10? In people selecting those?
You know, I don't know the exact take rate, to be quite honest with you. I would say that there are more 650s with a crew rest area than without a crew rest area. It seemed like a couple of years ago there was you know, a lot of folks that were selecting aircraft without the crew rest area, but we're seeing that shift back now. So,
thank you.
But you know, what's nice is that you could do either. You know, so we can have this with a crew rest area, we can have it without. And, you know, not everyone is flying 7,500 miles, so it really depends on your mission profile. So back in the back of the aircraft, you'll have the 4 distinct living areas. You can configure this any way you'd like. As shown here, you have 4 singles in the first living area. You have a 3-place divan in the second living area opposite a credenza. That credenza will have either a 32-inch tilt-up monitor or a 43-inch pop-up monitor. Those are both 4K monitors. And then the third living area, we have the 6-place conference table, and you can saw how our industrial design team has figured out a way to deploy a wall-to-wall table without having to carry an extra leaf, which is a nice feature. Then you'll have a bulkhead here in this configuration with a fixed bed. In this situation, we have a fixed bed and then a kind of a credenza storage area opposite that. The size of that bed is about 80 inches long and about 50 inches wide. But we can have other configurations where if you have a single seat, or if you want to take away that credenza altogether and have an even larger bed, we actually go up to a 60-inch wide bed in the aircraft.
Are you offering a shower option?
We are. So back in the lavatory, so what you can see here is you know, the sink and the toilet on one side. You can have a wardrobe on the opposite side. In this configuration, you could replace that wardrobe closet with the shower option. We also have an extended configuration. We have actually an extended aft lavatory and actually a master suite. So in this configuration, you know, if you do not need to have the crew rest area, what we can do is give that space back into passengers. So in this configuration, you still have the same forward lavatory, but the galley becomes a double-sided galley instead of a single-sided galley. It's actually a little bit larger than the galley that's on the 650. But what you can see here is back in this aft area here, you have a larger suite, and then the lavatory becomes much larger, where now you have a sink on one side, the toilet on the other side. You have 2 windows in that aft lavatory. You have a full stand-up shower, and then you also have a wardrobe. So lots of flexibility in how we can configure that aft area. So whether you want a shower, you don't want a shower, if you want the extended suite, or we actually can give you 5 distinct living areas in the airplane. So switching gears, we'll talk a little bit now about the Symmetry flight deck. And again, this is really building upon what we have accomplished on the G500 and 600. And of course, one of the great things for the G700 is that this will be a common pilot type rating with the G500 and 600. There will be a differences, of course, between the 700 and those aircraft. But really, it builds upon the touchscreen controls, the active control side sticks, some of the 2D and 3D airport movie maps. So I'll walk you through some of the various features. And we'll start first with the active control side stick. So, you know, on a commercial aircraft or business aircraft, any aircraft today that's flying with a side stick other than the 500, 600 is using a passive control side stick. So what that means is that when one pilot's moving the side stick, the other side stick remains static. And so you're relying on your displays to say who's flying the aircraft. And what's nice about the Symmetry flight deck is that these side sticks are electrically linked, so that when one side stick is being moved, the other moves along with it. So there's always good communication between the pilot and co-pilot and who's flying the aircraft. Even when you're on autopilot, those sticks will move along with it. Very much like what you see today if you were to have a yoke. I love this quote here. This is from Chris Hart, who used to be the former chairman of the NTSB. He also spent about 14 years with the FAA and their safety directorate. He made the quote here about how the active control side sticks significantly enhance aircraft safety by improving that nonverbal communication and coordination between the pilot and co-pilot. So first to bring this technology to the industry in the 500 and 600, and it will be on the G700 as well. Great safety feature. The other aspect is using the touchscreen controls. There's actually 10 of these touchscreens on the airplane. There's 3 overhead touchscreens that you will use to control all of your systems on board the aircraft. And any one of those 3 touchscreens can control all the systems for the airplane. So you actually have 3 levels of redundancy overhead on how to control the systems. In addition, you have 5 touchscreen controllers. That's a picture of one of the touchscreen controllers here. This is where the pilot is using to interact with their flight plans, their communication. Basically, it replaces your audio control panel, your MCDUs, things such as that. You can see with a single selection, you can quickly get to your flight plan or communication or phase of flight in a single push. A lot of folks are asking about, well, so what happens when you get into turbulence with with these touchscreens? And really, we did a lot of work to help in that area. The first thing is that there's a grip around each one of the touchscreens, so you can actually steady your hand on those grips even in a turbulent situation, and then use your fingers to make your selection. The other thing is that although it looks like an iPad, and in many ways it acts like an iPad, it's not an iPad. It actually uses a different technology. It's resistive glass, and actually there's software, and it basically requires, when you select something, it requires a certain amount of force, about 3 ounces of force that's being applied to that system. You need to hold it there for a period of time before it actually will bloom up, and then it actually activates once you take your finger off. So it's a little bit different. It's not like in your iPad where you can accidentally click an app or something like that. It's not going to be that same type of a function. And then, of course, if there's anything that is critical, we can actually double guard it as well. So when you select something, it'll pop up a window to say, do you really want to do this? And you can continue on that. The other part of this is that there's an intuitive phase of flight feature with the aircraft. And that's really when you're going through the different phases of your mission, whether it's taxi, takeoff, or cruise or descent. It'll show you the right information that you need. And so really the way I kind of look at this is a system that was designed by pilots for pilots, and a lot of great feedback so far. But really, the whole intent here is to make it easier for the pilot to interface with the aircraft. It streamlines that whole interface, but really reduce pilot workload and reduce errors. In addition to the touchscreens and the active control side sticks, aircraft also comes standard with dual head-up display. Those head-up displays will be able to show not only our enhanced vision system, but also synthetic vision. So that is standard. As background, our EVS system, Gulfstream kind of led the way in the development of EVS back in the early 2000s. And we actually worked with the FAA to get those rules rewritten, and actually they were recently rewritten so that allows you to use the EVS system not only down below your normal decision height and down to 100 feet, but all the way down to touchdown and rollout. And there's only a few aircraft that can do that, because you actually have to show a certain level of fidelity and capability with your forward-looking infrared sensor that's used for the EVS. And Gulfstream is the first to have the EVS to land. And I think, as a matter of fact, as far as I know, I think we're the only ones that have that certification for the EVS to land. And then in addition to the synthetic vision, there are also some nice features that actually have a 2D and 3D airport moving maps, which enhances your situational awareness in the terminal area. So lots of redundancy, lots of capability, really well thought out, again, by pilots, for pilots. One of the new technologies that were incorporated on the 700 is the predictive landing performance system. And actually, we're coming out with this first with the G650. But what this does is it takes your current conditions of your aircraft during your approach, basically your energy, your speed, your altitude, your glide slope, what are the winds, what are the runway conditions. And throughout the entire approach and landing, it will provide information to the pilot of where you are predicted to stop on the runway. And if you look to the left of that speed tape, that's actually where the indications are, and actually will show you your stopping point, both with maximum auto braking and minimum auto braking. And what's nice is if the system predicts that you're going to be overrunning the runway, it'll provide guidance to the flight crew to make sure you go to max auto braking, or check your landing distance, or if it can never find a solution to land safely, it will then tell you to do a go around. So just a great safety feature. We actually won the AvWeek Laureate Award for safety last year for this. Probably the easiest way to see how this works is to watch a short video. So what we'll be looking at here is actually one of our test flights. We're deliberately going to go long on this to see the different triggers here. You can see the max and low. That's your maximum auto braking, and there's your low auto braking. So that's telling the pilot where you're predicted to land. I'm going to pause in just a second here. Now you can see how the runway turned amber, and you got a amber note on the left-hand side. And pretty soon we're going to see a note that says check auto brakes.
There you are. So now shallow out again, 400.
And the reason why it's telling you to check auto brakes is if you look on the left-hand side here, at max auto braking, you're landing safely, but with min auto braking, you're not. You're overrunning the runway. So the system's telling the pilot, go to max auto brake in that situation. All right, I'm going to continue on here. Again, we're going to deliberately go long.
Try to max off before you get to 200. Okay.
All right, so now what we're going to find out. All right, so we turned to amber here with a note of landing distance. And now you can look on the left-hand side here. You can see both the max auto braking and low auto braking, you are beyond the end of the runway. All right, so that means you are too far, and we're going to continue on down. Again, we're going to deliberately keep this going long. We're going to go all the way down to go around.
At 200 feet. That's right. Yep. So you just keep driving down. Yep.
All right, and then at 200 feet.
Go around. Go around. Go to 20. Left 20, please.
Now you get the alarm, do go around, and off you go. So really just a great feature throughout your entire approach and landing capability. Again, this is a new feature that Gulfstream's been working on. It'll show up first on the 650, probably next year or later on this year, and then we'll implement it on the G700. So, and then one other thing from the system perspective that I like to talk about is the data concentration network. This is something that is often overlooked, but there's just a tremendous amount of capability that this gives us. And really what this is it's an advanced high-speed communication network where all the systems on the aircraft are communicating through this network. Think of it like an Ethernet for your aircraft. So it's not a single wire that's connecting that system up to your flight deck. It's a network that it's plugging into, and because of that redundancy, you don't have that single point failure, and it enhances the reliability of this. It actually removes a substantial amount of wire from the aircraft. Actually saves you about a couple hundred pounds, and so it actually makes a lighter weight system and increases your payload carrying capability. But in addition, there's some nice things that we can do with this. The data concentration network actually allows us to pull information off the network, and actually we can pull down about 15,000 parameters that we can then use for our aircraft health and trend monitoring function. And of course, this is what we're trying to do, is to look for situations to do predictive maintenance. So if we find something that is acting out of norm, we can use that trend analysis to identify those failures before they occur. We can also program the network, and we actually can do hosted functions within the network. And so that's actually one of the reasons why we can do our startup to taxi in less than 10 minutes because of some of the programmable functions that we've integrated into the data concentration network. And I think another area that's really nice is that it's very easily upgradable for future systems. I've heard countless times where folks want to introduce something into the aircraft, and they're pulling out big chunks of the interior to run the new wire from that new system up to the flight deck, and you don't have to do that. Now you're plugging into that network, so it makes upgrades for future systems just a lot easier. So a great feature. This system actually first started off in the commercial side in the 787 and the Airbus 8380 were the first to integrate this in the business aircraft. All right, we'll switch gears now into the performance of the aircraft. 7,500 nautical miles at Mach 8.5, that's the long-range cruise speed. You're not going to want to fly slower than this. That truly is the long-range cruise speed for the aircraft. Slowing down is not going to get you any further. But most of the operators in the 650 are flying, between Mach 8A to Mach 9.0. And because you're really not seeing your fuel burn increase dramatically with those faster speeds. And in fact, at Mach 9.0, you're flying 6,400 nautical miles. Great takeoff and landing performance, about 6,200 feet at your maximum takeoff weight. Typical landing weight would be about 2,500 feet. And then your cruise altitude will go directly to 41,000 feet and we'll top out at 51. Great fuel efficiency. We'll be about 3 to 15% more fuel efficient than the competition here. We're really kind of showing you some of the capabilities. This is the range map departing out of St. Louis. The inner line is at Mach 9.0. The white line is at Mach 8.5. So what you can see here at 9/10 the speed of sound with 8 passengers out of St. Louis, you're reaching, pretty much all of Japan. You're getting into Beijing. You're covering all of South America, covering all of North Africa and all of Europe, and even over into Moscow. And really, unless you're continuing on into places like Shanghai or Hong Kong or Dubai or Cape Town, that's when you're going to be slowing down a little bit to 8.5. So just a tremendous capability in the aircraft. And that's a great example of why folks are flying routinely at Mach 9.0. And really, there's huge benefits of flying at those faster cruise speeds. When you think about the time savings, you're looking about up to an hour time savings flying at 9.0 versus Mach 8.0. And you combine those savings over a typical year, easily we're seeing operators saving more than 50 hours per year. So you think about what that means, some of the other tangible benefits, in addition to just not being up in the air that long. You know, you're putting less hours on those aircraft, and that's going to enhance your resale value. Your maintenance programs, your parts programs, your engine programs, those are all based on hours. And so if you're putting fewer hours on the aircraft, you're putting less money into those programs. And I think there's also a safety aspect too. You know, if you're able to cut your crew duty day by an hour, you know, you're just that much more refreshed when it comes time to land. So a lot of great features, and it's really, really well received for our 500, 600, and 650 operators that are flying routinely at Mach 9.0. But that speed is really only capable because of a couple of things. And one is, of course, the advanced aerodynamics. And it's not just the winglet, but it's the entire wing itself. But we actually made the 650 wing even better on the G700. It is a larger wingspan. It's 103 feet versus the 99.7, so a little over 3 feet wider. But it's more blended, higher swept design. It actually looks much different at different angles, but it does enhance the aerodynamic efficiency quite a bit. And then you combine that with the new Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 engine, 18,000 pounds of thrust each, great fuel efficiency, about 3 to 5% more fuel efficient than the BR 725 engine that's on the G650. Very environmentally efficient as well. Will meet our stage 5 noise limits. It's actually a bliss. It's a 52-inch diameter bliss fan. That's a bladed fan disc. That's what that stands for. A little bit higher bypass ratio. So it's an all-new engine, and again, doing very well in the flight test program.
I think it's important to add, Steve, the blisked fan on the Rolls-Royce Pearl. The shape of that fan blade is such on the Pearl 700, specifically for the G700, it's adopting a lot of the aerodynamic technology of your blended winglet. And so you've basically got 4 winglets on the airplane, 2 in the engine and 1 on each wing.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right, Jeremy. And you know, if you look at the fan face of the 700 and the Pearl engine, it is very unique. It's and the reason why it has to be that unique is so when we're flying, you know, close to the speed of sound, the things you have to worry about is developing shock waves on the end of your fan tips. And so that's why, because that flow is so much more complex than just even over your winglets, that the shape of that individual fan blades is quite unique. It makes pretty spectacular to look at the fan face. So great point. All right, we'll switch gears and talk about how we're doing in the program itself. And I think all you know that we announced the aircraft back in October at MEAA. We had 1,000 of our friends and customers, and back before social distancing was even a concept. But it was a great night for Gulfstream, great night for the industry. But really the work went well before that announcement. And for those who've been to our facility in Savannah, you may have been over to our research and development campus. And in that campus, we have our dedicated G700 labs. And we actually first opened up these labs back in 2016. And it's really used to help mature the program, to help mitigate any program risks, to develop a more mature product, and also really, to be quite honest with you, to enhance safety. And actually, we completed more than 14,000 hours of testing in those ground labs before the first flight. And what's nice is that, you know, before we get into a high-risk test, including the very first flight of the airplane, we can run the flight card multiple times in those labs and go through all the failure scenarios and make sure that we're comfortable. So it's really paying off in multiple different ways. And I think we've had a lot of great feedback from the FAA on that. We actually now have completed more than 25,000 hours of testing in these laboratories. And these labs will continue on well beyond the certification of the G700. One of the first labs to open up was our systems integration bench. This actually opened up in 2016. This is where we're working to integrate the data concentration network and our avionics. We also combine that with a full iron bird. This is where we're testing out all of the flight controls, the actuations, the systems. That's been in operation since April of 2018. The integration test facility, there's actually 2 ITFs. One is the flight deck and the other one is the cabin. These are actually using aircraft components. So those are the actual part numbers, the actual wire runs, everything that's in the aircraft is replicated in these laboratories to make sure that everything works together correctly. This has been in operation since March of 2018. There's a closer view of the flight deck. It does have some visuals there, so we can use it for some human factors testing as well. We actually were able to get some human factors testing certification efforts on the 500, 600. So instead of doing some of that work on the aircraft, we actually were able to do that with the FAA in these labs. So very high fidelity. And then there's back in the cabin as well. This is not a customer area. This is really a working area. So don't pay too much attention to like the seat designs, but it's really to make sure that the cabin management system works correctly, the lighting system we talked about. I mean, all those items are fully tested out in the lab. We completed all of our structural testing. We actually did this on our second test aircraft that we built. We did not break the wing. And the reason why we didn't break it is because we've actually already broke the wing on the 650, right? So for those of you who've seen those dramatic videos in the past by other manufacturers of actually taking the structural test to ultimate failure, you do learn quite a bit from that. But we didn't have to run those tests again. But so we completed the structural test on the 700. We have now pulled that out, and we are going to be updating this airplane with a full interior. It'll be actually part of our cabin development testing. And then our first flight occurred on February 14th this year. Just about 2.5 hours in the flight. We actually conducted it using sustainable aviation fuel. I'll do a little side note here on Gulfstream's involvement with SAF. We've been using SAF now for 4 to 5 years. Actually have flown more than 1.2 million miles on SAF, and really just to try to help demonstrate and show to the world and the industry that it is a safe fuel to use. It's a drop-in fuel, and so there's no modifications that's needed to the aircraft or whatever. It's not like Jet A, it is Jet A. It meets the exact same certification standards as a Jet A fuel, so it's safe and approved to be dropped into the airplane. You don't need to pull out your existing petroleum-based Jet A with the biofuel type version of Jet A. It's all Jet A, and so there's nothing you really need to do there, but it really helps reduce your carbon footprint using those SAF by about 50% on a life cycle basis. So we're going to continue to keep growing the use of this and trying to make it a little easier for folks in the industry to get access to SAF and to really help bring those costs down so that you don't pay a premium for using that. I'm going to show a quick video of the first flight of the G700.
Yeah, but very good. Pretty good. Expect yourself to be on the airplane. Pretty good to me. Seems nice. Feels good.
All right, so great day for Gulfstream, and since that time we've had a lot of success in the flight test program. The second aircraft conducted its first flight back in March 20th, about a 3-hour flight, brought it up to Mach 8.5 and 45,000 feet. So this is actually the fourth of our test airplanes. And then our third airplane to join the flight test program was back in May, again over about a 3-hour flight. So really to kind of talk about where we are today. So there's 3 airplanes in the flight test program today. We completed our flutter testing. We completed our envelope expansion. We brought the aircraft out to dive speed. We brought the aircraft actually above the certified altitude up to 54,000 feet. So we've totally cleared the entire flight envelope, which is a great milestone. Current testing is really focused on flight controls. Actually, we're going to be doing some VMCG flights in the coming weeks. We already did our VMCA test a couple weeks ago. Other aircraft are working on loads testing, also some avionics testing, and then some of the system perspective on number 4. That's going to be doing our upcoming tests are going to be focused more on systems, ECS, cabin pressure controllers, nose wheel steering, some of the more near-term stuff. But great feedback from the pilots on the aircraft. We're seeing good reliability, great handling characteristics. So here's a shot of number 4. This is the couple weeks ago we were down at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida at the using their climatic lavatory. And what we can actually do is bring the aircraft down all the way down to the minimum temperature, which is -40 C, and cold soak the aircraft and make sure that the systems and the components work the way they should. So successfully completed those tests a few weeks ago. I'll walk through the various airplanes to let you know what we're using each of our aircraft for. So number 1, that's the aircraft that did the first flight back in February. We did the flutter expansion, did the flutter test, the envelope expansion, the stall testing. That's why you see the stall chute that's installed on the back of the tail end of the aircraft there. This aircraft also has the nose boom for calibrating the air data system. Again, we're also using this for flying qualities. Number three is really kind of a field performance type of an aircraft. We'll be doing testing on the brakes, also on the engine, APU, client performance, field performance. The number 4, this is the aircraft that we had in the environmental control, the climatic chamber. We'll also be using it to test out some of the various systems. When we first got up in the air back in March, it was still cool enough in the North America where we actually were able to knock out some of the flight in a known icing testing for that. So just kind of some of the preliminary look at the FIKI test. In addition to those 3 airplanes, there's 2 additional flight test aircraft, number 5 and number 7. Those will be flying later on this year. Number 5, you'll be doing a lot of our work on avionics, DCN, flammable fluids, cold weather, HRF and lightning, things such as that. Number 7 will be our avionics test bird. And then you may well have what about number 6 and number 2? So those are the 2 airplanes that are going to be outfitted with a full interior. So those airplanes, this is more than we've ever had in the past. In the past we've maybe just had 1 or maybe just relied solely on the labs. Now we actually have 2 aircraft that can be fully outfitted to be used to make sure that everything works correctly in flight. So when you're under load or under cold soak conditions, making sure that everything works correctly, your pocket doors work smoothly. You will do acoustical testing on there, so we'll measure the cabin sound levels, make sure our acoustic package is what we're expecting. But we're also, this really kind of supplements the testing that we're doing in our ground labs in the ITF. So we're doing our own development testing, making sure everything works correctly, and we'll also be using it to get our supplemental type certificates for the interior. So that really kind of wraps up the presentation, but hopefully I think you get across that we really kind of took, again, the best of the 650, which is the great long range and great high speed, and combine it with some of the great technologies that we developed with the 500 and 600 with the Symmetry flight deck, and then really wrap that together with a lot of work in the interior of the cabin to make it more comfortable, more functional. It's a very mature development program. I like to think that we did a lot of the heavy lifting on the G500, 600, 650 certification programs. And then in addition, when you think about we have more than 400 G650s in service. We have about close to 70 of our G500 and 600s in service now. So a lot of in-service experience. That combined with a lot of investments in laboratories and flight tests and structural testing, really to make sure that we deliver this aircraft on time, and that it not only performs but exceeds what we're quoting. We're very conservative on how we quote our initial figures, and really make sure that it goes out of the box, reliable and exceeding our customers' expectations. So still on track for customer deliveries in 2022. So it's hard to believe it's coming up so quickly. So with that, I'm happy to open up any questions that anybody may have about the G700. I can help answer for you.
Well, I know we've got one sitting in the Q&A box. I've got a question of my own, and this is jumping the gun, Steve, and forgive me for this, but it's always want more, more, more. So did you guys hold back a little bit and may possibly offer an extended range version, an ER version? I know you're at 53.8 tons in weight at 107,680 pounds, and that's an awful lot of fuel being held, and 7,500 nautical mile range is phenomenal, but there's always going to be somebody that wants to go further and longer. Yeah. So
no, that's a fair point. So when we make an announcement at the product announcement, we are 100% sure we're going to be making those numbers, and if we're able to deliver a little better performance, then that's great, and we're going to give that to the folks. We do not plan to offer an extended range variant. Okay. So unlike in the 650 program, and you may remember that in the 650 program, we announced that to be a 7,000 mile airplane at 8.5, but a 5,000 mile at 9.0, and we actually delivered 6,000 nautical miles at Mach 9.0, and we didn't charge for that. And it was only later that folks said, hey, I wanted to go a little bit more, and we knew we had some growth capability in the aircraft, and that's when we certified 2 years later the extended range version that gave you the extra 500 nautical miles. So so we don't plan to offer an ER, but pretty darn certain we're going to deliver the performance figures I showed you, and hope to be able to deliver a little bit more to folks. So.
Well, we got a couple of questions, and I'm going to start off in the order that they came in, and this one's been sitting in the inbox for some time, but Rick Berkmeyer asks, is this aircraft completely manufactured in Savannah?
Yes.
Are the wings in Savannah as well? That's the question.
Yeah, actually it is. So, Gulfstream continues to bring more and more of the manufacturing in-house, and part of that is the building of the wings. And we first started building wings on the G500 and 600 program, and we will also be building the wing on the G700 as well, or have built the wings in the 700. So yes, fully built in Savannah.
Is ceasing production on the G550 freeing up production space, or is that
no? So the way our production areas in Savannah are laid out, we actually have 3 distinct production areas. There is the original building that we first opened up when Gulfstream came to Savannah back in 1967. That's where the G2, 3, 4, all the way up to G550 have been produced. And as you know, we're finalizing our production of the G550. We put out a press release not too long ago that aircraft will end. There's a few more special mission aircraft that we need to work on for the 550 fleet. And then that space will be repurposed, but it will not be repurposed for these aircraft. We actually have a dedicated building for the G650, and the G700 will also be built on that line as well. Again, they share that same cabin cross section, just one's a little bit longer than the other. And then in 2014, we opened up the production facility for the 500 and 600. So there's 3 distinct production areas, not even counting the wing production building, which is, I guess you could count that as your 4th. So
interesting. So we got a question from Josh, and his question, obviously during your flight testing program that's underway, with speed and altitude envelopes being pushed to Mach 0.99 and flight level 540, will that increase the current ceiling and MMO of the production delivery?
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, we're going to keep our MMO at 0.925. Max certified altitude to be 51,000 feet. During the flight test program, we actually have to test it out to a higher speed, actually take it all the way out to dive speed. And actually that 99 is actually closer to 999. So it's almost right there at that speed of sound. And then we also take it above max certified altitude. Actually, that's part of some of the dive speed stuff to get that upper part of the flight envelope. We actually have to take the aircraft above max certified altitude to reach those points. So maybe a way to kind of think about it, you all operate the aircraft daily in a certain part of the flight envelope. Of course, the flight envelope is much bigger, but during the test program, we actually test beyond that flight envelope. So there's so much more margin that's built into these airplanes that folks use on a daily basis. Just kind of shows you the robustness of these aircraft.
I'm curious, with those kind of test altitudes, what kind of max cabin pressure differential are you seeing in PSI? Do you have any idea?
If I remember right, gosh, there's so many numbers I have to memorize now. I think the max delta P is 10.7 PSI.
Huh.
That's what it is. So.
But when you look at the surface area it's acting on, because you didn't mention it, but you are basically the widest and largest cabin of a purpose-built business jet. So when you look at surface area, that's immense pressure.
It is. And, you got all those windows too. And we actually certify those windows, of course, up to that same delta P. And the way we actually certify those windows, we actually have to, it's a 2-ply window. We have to break the outer panel of that window or deliberately fail it, and then bring up the pressure to 4 times what you would normally see. So we certify it by test. And so any notion that these are grandfathered in is totally incorrect. We actually have to totally certify not only the structure but the transparencies all the way up to those conditions as well.
Very impressive. So everyone that's participating, if you have a question, please type it in. Otherwise, we are going to move to a close on this webinar on the wonderful G700. So last chance to ask a question. Anybody out there? And Sherman, are you selling lots and lots of these airplanes?
I am. We've been busy since the announcement in Las Vegas. And as Steve mentioned, we've sold out the first few years. So it's been a busy time for us.
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Well, we're coming up to an hour. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I just want to take the time to thank everybody for participating today. I hope you found the information to be useful. If you have any other follow-on questions later on, feel free to reach out to me or to Sherman or through Jeremy or Tim to help us, and we're happy to get whatever information you need. So hope you all have a great night and great weekend. Steve, would you like to provide people with the means for them to contact you? Would you like to give them your email address? Yep. Steve.cass@gulfstream.com. So STEVE.CASS, Charlie Alpha Sierra Sierra. So. Excellent. Thank you. And Sherman, you want to get your... Most of you probably have mine. It's sherman.griffith@gulfstream.com. That's SHERMAN.GRIFFITH@gulfstream.com. Well done. Thank you. Tim, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to mention?
Just like to take the moment to thank Steve and Sherman for the wonderful presentation, and thank you to all the participants for joining us today.
I second that remark completely. And with that, there's no further questions. We're going to say this is Jeremy Cox, the Greater St. Louis Business Aviation Association, signing off with my good friends at Gulfstream, and Tim, your president. Thank you very, very much for attending. And thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.